Linda's moans filled the bedroom, raw and unrestrained. I stood in the dark hallway, barely breathing, my pulse hammering in my ears. She hadn't noticed me. Neither had he. The bed creaked violently. The sheets rustled. I watched, hidden in the shadows, as my wife clawed at the muscular back of the man above her body moving in ways I had never seen before. So this was what she had been missing. Heat rose to my face, not from anger, but from something I couldn't quite name. I should have burst in, yelled, tore him off her, but I didn't. I watched. I took a slow step back, retreating down the stairs. My hands trembled, but my mind sharpened with an unfamiliar clarity. Instead of rage, I felt something deeper, a hunger to understand. I had suspected something was wrong for weeks. The way my wife avoided my touch, the distant look in her eyes, the sudden enthusiasm for late nights out with friends, it all pointed to something. But suspicion wasn't enough. I needed proof. So I found it. A hidden camera placed carefully in our bedroom. I told myself it was paranoia, that I wouldn't find anything. Back in my office, I opened my laptop. The hidden camera in the vent had captured everything. I played it back, pausing at the way Linda's body responded, the way she surrendered completely to him. What did he have that I didn't? A thought formed, dark and undeniable. If she wanted to experience something different, so would I. I hit record. This was just the beginning. Every night, while she slept next to me, I revisited the footage. I dissected it, studying the way she responded to him, how she surrendered in ways I had never seen before. It was humiliating, enraging, but beneath all of that, intriguing. I had thought I knew my wife, her desires, her limits. But here she was, lost in pleasure I had never witnessed. The helplessness in her body, the surrender in her breathless moans, how her body surrendered in ways I had never seen before, the gasps that escaped her lips, the sheer abandon with which she succumbed to his touch. I had never thought a woman could look so lost in pleasure, so overtaken by sensation that her own thoughts and dignity were stripped away, the way her fingers clutched at his skin like she needed him to breathe. I couldn't stop watching. Every time I told myself it would be the last, I found myself drawn back to the undeniable proof of my wife's betrayal. It was an education I hadn't asked for, but couldn't turn away from. I studied every frame, noting the subtleties of his dominance, the way his hands controlled her, the way she melted under him. A strange feeling settled within me. Not just rage, not just betrayal, but something deeper, something more insidious. A hunger. So I researched, I read, I learned. Not just about physical fitness, but about power, about seduction, about what made a woman truly submit, not just in body but in mind. My days were spent transforming myself, lifting, training, sculpting my body into something I never knew it could be. My nights were spent watching, absorbing, preparing. My wife barely noticed. She was too caught up in her own world, floating on the high of her secret affair, thinking I was none the wiser. Then, one evening as I stepped out of the shower, she made an offhand comment. "You're looking good these days," she said, her eyes scanning my chest, the muscles that hadn't been there before. It was the first time in months that she had really looked at me. I only nodded in response, but inside, something clicked. It was working. At the gym, I started noticing the looks. Women who had never given me a second glance were now watching me, their gazes lingering as I lifted, stretched, moved. And then there was Anita, brown-skinned, toned with deep, knowing eyes. More than once, I caught her sneaking glances at me from across the room, her lips parting just slightly when I took my shirt off after workout. The way her eyes lingered on me, the way she seemed to time her workouts to match mine. So I made my move. What started as casual conversation quickly became something more. She was drawn to the new version of me, the man who carried himself with silent confidence, who didn't hesitate, who didn't chase but simply let the world gravitate toward him. She was the opposite of my wife in every way. Where my wife had become distant and deceitful, Anita was direct and passionate. She wanted me, and she made no attempt to hide it. The first time we were together, it was different. This wasn't just lust or revenge. It was power. I had taken control of my own story. And for the first time in a long time, I felt alive. I started coming home late, the scent of another woman clinging to me. My wife, too wrapped up in her own affair, didn't question it until she did. The compliments on my physique turned into suspicion. The lingering touches became hesitant. She had spent so long betraying me, never considering that I might be capable of the same. And now I had Anita. Anita was fire and confidence, a woman who had noticed me before I had even seen myself. At first, my interest in her was purely tactical, a means to balance the scales. But with each encounter, I realized this was more than revenge. With Anita, I felt something real, something intoxicating in its own right. She craved me, admired me, and with every touch, she made me feel like a king. Something my wife had taken for granted. I brought Anita home. I knew my wife's schedule, knew exactly when she'd return. And when she did, she found me in our bed, her bed, with Anita writhing beneath me, moaning in the same way she had moaned for him. The moment of reckoning had come. She froze in the doorway. A sharp, choking gasp escaped her lips, her hand flying to her mouth as if to stifle the sound. Her wide eyes darted between us, between my body entangled with Anita's, between the sheets she had once claimed as her own, now steeped in the sweat and scent of another woman. For a moment, I thought she might faint. Her legs buckled slightly. Her knuckles turned white as she gripped the doorframe. 1,000 emotions warred in her face. Shock, disbelief, confusion. And then, beneath it all, something darker. A flicker of devastation. I'd seen that look before. On myself. The night I first discovered what she had done. Anita, completely unfazed, ran a slow, teasing finger down my chest, deliberately arching against me, pressing her warmth into my skin. I could feel the heat of her breath as she whispered, just loud enough for my wife to hear, I think we have company. She stretched languidly, the sheets slipping further down her smooth skin, revealing more of her body. My wife finally found her voice, though it came out broken, barely above a whisper. What the hell is this? I didn't answer immediately. I let the silence hang heavy between us, the weight of her own actions crashing down upon her. I wanted her to feel it, to truly feel it, the way I had. Then, slowly, I sat up, taking my time, letting her take in the sight of me. Stronger, different, not the man she had betrayed, not the man who had once craved her love and validation. That man was gone. What does it look like? I finally said, my voice even controlled. She shook her head violently, her breathing ragged. No, this isn't you. This isn't us. What are you doing? A bitter smirk tugged at the corner of my lips. I'm just playing the same game you did. The only difference is, I learned to play it better. The color drained from her face. She took a slow step forward, as if trying to bridge the impossible gap that had formed between us. Please tell me this is some kind of joke, that you don't mean this. But I did, and I had never meant anything more in my life. I stood, towering over her, watching as she shrank under the weight of what she had done, but what I had become. And then, with deliberate precision, I reached for my phone on the nightstand, opened a folder labeled with her name, and turned the screen toward her. It was her. Every video, every moment she thought had been hidden, playing on repeat. Her breath hitched, her lips parted, but no words came. Just the silent, hollow sound of a woman realizing she had lost everything. I let her watch, let the truth sink in, and then, finally, I spoke the word that would shatter whatever illusion she had left. Get out.